Hey folks, I'm Vasel, and today we're talking about Stefan Feld. Best of designers, he is certainly one of the most famous designers that there is right now, and a lot of people really enjoy him. Now, Rainer Knizia in the 90s was known as the king of the heavy Euro game. Maybe Wolfgang Kramer and some other people, but Stefan Feld was really not on that list, even though he had some games released in this period of time. But once we hit the 2000s, especially in the teens from 2010 plus, if you talk about Stefan Feld each year, the people who really like the Euro games are very excited about whatever game he's about to do next. Now, I personally am not the hugest fan of Mr. Feld, although he has such a good attitude. I met him in person, good humor and stuff about the whole situation. But there are a lot of games of his I do like. In fact, I was able to make a list of 10 of them. However, I'm sure there's some I'm going to miss. So Jason Levine, who also likes his games, is going to make a companion list of games that I've missed, so you can check that out. But here are my 10 favorite games from Mr. Feld. Number 10 is Amerigo. Amerigo is a game that uses the cube tower. Now, while I personally prefer it in Wallenstein and Shogun and things like that, the cube tower where you throw cubes in and they come out, he used this as cubes that come out that are going to allow you to do actions in a game where you're, putting, there's like land that you're discovering and putting things out all over the board. It's a very beautiful game. It's a nice production. And it uses the cube tower, as far as I can tell, the only time where it's not used for warfare. Amerigo. Number 9 is Pillars of the Earth Builders Duel. This game is totally flown under the radar for many people. It is a 2-player game based on Pillars of the Earth, but it really doesn't feel like the board game at all. In fact, it's kind of, it has this row column thing going on, and you're going back and forth trying to get the right cards to be the first to win the game. It's almost like, it is like a race to be the first person to get certain actions done. And I like it. It's been a long time since I've actually played this one, but it just has a unique, interesting flavor to it. Number 8 is the Castles of Burgundy dice game. Now, while I think this one is not quite as good as other dice games in this genre, it has some more complexities to it and some more interesting things going on than many other dice games. In fact, this is not the only time you're going to see Castles of Burgundy on my list, but the dice game is of the 3 different games that he's made of it, my lowest ranked one, but I do enjoy it. Number 7 is Trajan. Now, for many people, Trajan is the number 1 game from Stefan Feld. It is a game where some people have coined the term point salad. I've used it myself. I don't think point salad's necessarily a bad thing. Whatever you do, you get points. You get points, you get points. Because there is something fulfilling about doing that. Like, now Trajan has this theme about Romans and emperors, and there's really no theme there. And uses a little bit of a Mancala aspect as you're moving discs around on a circular track to be able to take different actions. Whatever actions you take are going to get you points, and you have to decide which actions. Are you going to go for area control on the map? Are you going to get these tiles over here? There's a lot going on, but the game itself is not that complex, but it can become very thinky. Number 6 is the game that most people, I think, is probably the highest rated game, and that's Castles of Burgundy. This is a game that is really boring looking, frankly, but you're going to have these dice that are rolled, and you're going to be using these dice to get tiles, to put these tiles on your own grid, and as you put these tiles there, they're going to get you points. Again, this whole getting points from various things is his bread and butter, and this is one of those games that really does a good job of that. It's one of those games, too, that I don't know that would necessarily be in my wheelhouse, but I was like, wow, I really enjoy this. And a lot of other people who don't necessarily like these heavier style Euro games have really enjoyed this one. Maybe it's the dice? I don't know. Number 5 is the Castles of Burgundy card game. Yes, that's 3 games on my list with Castles of Burgundy, and the card game is very similar to the board game, but I think it does a lot of what the board game does in a faster way, which is why I like it slightly better, as you are essentially drafting cards from the middle of the table that have dice on them and using them to take actions. And again, to me, it feels like a more streamlined version of the board game, and it takes a smaller amount of space and is very fun. Number 4 is Jorvik. Now, this is actually a reprinting of an earlier game that Mr. Feld did. And in this game, and it actually kind of doubles the amount of material, and it has a really cool, unique auction one. And this is one that, for me, has been rising. I just played this one a few months ago. I was looking for a game to teach people, decided to teach them this one. I was like, wow, I forgot how much I enjoyed this game. As you are bidding on a spot to get it, but the price is how many people put their stuff there. So it can be a really mean, vicious game. I mean, really mean, as I will put a person on a spot just to make it cost more for you to get. Of course, if you reject buying it, then I can get it for a lower cost. So there's some really fun back and forth in this game. I mean, in the end, again, it's getting points in different ways for, cards for points, but a good game. Number 3 is one that just recently came out, and that's Merlin. Now, Merlin is one of the luckier versions of his games because it uses dice. Well, so does Castles of Burgundy, I guess. It's a huge rondel where you're moving knights of the round table around this thing, and you land on different spots. And so you're going to use your die and decide when's the best time to use each of your dice to move your guy around the board, or to move Merlin. At the same time, there are so many ways to mitigate the die rolls, to flip it on the other side, to move backwards. There are many different ways to get points. A really nice production, lots of different cool pieces and such. The theme is kind of just there, right? But it's still a really good game, Merlin. Number 2 is Bruges. Bruges is a game that I really enjoy because of the card play in it. You have these cards, and I'm a sucker for using cards for multiple things. And these cards can be used to play as special buildings, each one doing something different, or you're going to be able to use them to get points over here. Again, it's another one of these points out games where there's multiple places to do things to mitigate disasters. One thing Mr. Feld has done in several games that you will not find on my list, he has made many games that are difficult and have bad things happening to the players. I'm not always a fan of that, and it happens in Bruges, but it's a lot easier to mitigate in Bruges. There's certain ways to kind of fight off fire burning down your buildings or rats getting in and so on. A really nice little production. Again, not much of a theme there, but I really like it. And my number 1 favorite game from Stefan Feld is Oracle of Delphi. And I think this is partially because it feels the least like his other games. It really does. Oracles of Delphi, you are essentially in a race, and you just have a bunch of goals that you have to do. And so you're sailing your ship around here, picking up goods, putting them over here, building a statue over here, fighting off a monster here. There's even a little bit of dice rolling in this game. And there is some luck, especially in how the game is set up. It's a random board, but it's essentially just a fast little racing style game. I don't know that I put it like on my top 10 racing games because it doesn't feel necessarily like a racetrack going around in a circle, but you are getting your ship and trying to get things done before everybody else. It's not a certain number of points. You just have a certain number of tasks and getting them done. I like it. I like the theme. I like the special abilities that are in it. It's just a fun package overall. This, I'm sure, is a very different list than many of you would have, so let me know what your favorite Feld games are in the comments. Like I said, he's one of the tallest designers I've ever met, definitely taller than myself. He is very humble and nice, as most designers are in person, and while I've given him grief over many of his games in the past, he has done some great ones, especially, which is why this list exists. That's Stefan Feld, best of his games. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.